Hi Andy, this is Tim at WatchBox, and I just wanted to thank you for trusting me, Armand, and our company. Congratulations on your new H. Moser & C Venturer Small Seconds White Gold 39 millimeters. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the watch and everything that it is and offers. Now you can see the watch 39 millimeters, but what you might not notice is that it's only 12 millimeters thick, which is surprisingly thinner than a Rolex Daytona and already very flat watch. Now it's wonderfully cambered from side to side, but the distance lug to lug is also relatively short. At 44.7 millimeters, this watch is designed to look great on any wrist. The spacing between the lugs, if you want to order accessory straps, is 20 millimeters. And throwing it all on the wrist, you can see how it comes together. It is a wonderfully proportioned timepiece in white gold. It is substantial. You can feel that it's a little bit heftier than steel. I actually like that. As with some of the best FP Journe case designs, particularly the 38s, the distance across the wrist makes this watch viable in a way that a lot of modern dress watches aren't. This looks as elegant as one of the apex dress watches of the mid-20th century made by Vacheron, Audemars, or Patek in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. You can also see that it is distinctly Moser, and nowhere is that more evident than in the case profile. When we get close, you can see first the bubble-like sapphire that Moser uses on many of its dress watches, and second, the distinctive case profiles. You can see the sculpted hollows of the flank, mirror polished with vertical rather than longitudinal satin finish on the caseband. Moser is one of the foremost practitioners of this vertical satin finish, and it always sets the watches apart. So too does it use these scalloped lug profiles. You can even find a little bit of relief in the profiles of the Pioneer sports watch. Now, this is not one of their kudu straps. This is a wonderful nubuck texture alligator leather, large rectangular scale. You can see sheer-sided, so you can note the layers of construction, and they're not shorting you the leather. There is an awful lot of it. Of course, a brand new factory strap from Moser in perfect condition. Even the pin buckles exhibit extraordinary attention to detail. Note the use of both satin and the polished bevel, and then take a look. There is a little recess for the pin inside the buckle. The pin is polished, the buckle is not, and when you flip it over, there's a little bit of an elevated bridge architecture, so the strap sits inside the buckle rather than stacking up underneath it. Rolling back to the case flank, you can see that the crown is simple, and because there is a large and open, shall we call it, recess under the crown, there's no use for Moser's typical kerf. You can easily dig your nail in, but look at the conical profile of the crown. It's wider outboard, making it easier to grip. Turn the case over, and you can see the distinctive styling trait of Moser movements, and that's the double-crested Cote de Genève across the bridges. Of course, Moser, an old 19th century pocket watch brand, wants to recall that era. The modern Moser company was reestablished in 2005, and after 2012, it was under the stewardship of the Meylan family. Edward Meylan, of course, the superstar CEO today. And since this is a relatively recent rebirthed company, it's important to establish strong styling guidelines, and with the double-crested Cote de Genève and the three-quarter style bridges, they're not true three-quarter because they can be removed in parts, but it has the look of a three-quarter pocket watch style movement, and that's very important for a newer brand to at least visually reference the long history of the Moser name. Now, when you take a look at the escapement, you see one of the highlights of any Moser watch, which is the fact that these small parts, which every other brand pretty much buys from suppliers, they're actually made by Moser. Moser's out of Schaffhausen, just like IWC. They're the other manufacturer in Schaffhausen. And whereas IWC makes over 100,000 watches a year, Moser makes about 1,500, much closer in volume to FP Journe. So making the balance, the overcoil hairspring, and the escapement at their precision engineering subsidiary, Moser manages to build the toughest and most challenging components of a movement for its own products. Now you can see there is a power reserve indicator on the back of the watch. The watch beats away at 18,000 vibrations per hour. It has a 72-hour power reserve. You can see if I were to pull the crown out, the watch does feature stop seconds. And if you're wondering what is important about having an overcoil hairspring, well, it allows the watch to, by the way, up is fully wound, so I'm going to wind your watch as we discuss. An overcoil hairspring centers the mass of the hairspring, which allows the watch to beat and keep excellent time that is concentric breathing of the hairspring in any position on your wrist or on your dresser. It's almost like, in hairspring form, the same solution that Abraham Louis Breguet arrived at with the tourbillon, that is, minimize the effect of gravity on timing. Now, there's more going on here. If you look, you can see there's a stud holder that fixes the index in place and a full balance bridge, and those two features contribute to better shock resistance. So though the watch is a dress watch, it does have a rather tough and hardy architecture. This is a timepiece of extraordinary brand character, from the profile of the flank to the domed sapphire to the distinctive movement design, and of course the fume dial. Let us not forget that. The gradient fade from a sort of anthracite nickel gray at center, or anthracite nickel coating, to almost black at its edge. The fade from that silver gray to black, almost like charcoal at the outer face of the dial, is very Moser. And while that is now a common design treatment for dials from luxury brands, remember, it was this company that popularized the fume in the modern era, in spite of its size, already recognized and influential. And Rolex, take note, a paucity of printing. They don't write a book on the dial. Thanks so much, Andy. I really appreciate your trust in my company. Me and Armand, we're always here for your reference. Reach out to me directly, tim@thewatchbox.com, with any questions you have.